This is what we call the power hour. For the next hour, we're going to really now take everything that we've heard over the past day and a half, and we're going to we're going to get really loud.
Yeah, it's a little strategic feedback. That means you're not paying attention.
The more you talk, the screechier.
And then we really want you to focus on us up here.
Yeah.
This is kind of nice. I've been on the side of the room the whole time, so now I get the chance to look directly at you. So the ladies in the back, if you would invite them, tension up here, that would be fabulous. We're looking for you. Thank you so much. I know there's so much great stuff to talk about.
It's the lemon bars.
Right.
They bring people together.
Sugar.
Okay, so this last hour is going to be taking what we've talked about over the past day and a half and using the sticky notes on your table. Maketa's going to give some ground rules to really vote about where we should head and what are the most important things that will really advance this field forward. So I'm going to turn over to Maketa to give some ground rules and some scope on this part of the project.
Okay, cool.
Are we doing sticky notes or what?
Sorry.
I'm going to give you all the details right now. Great questions. Again, it's nice to get to talk to you instead of looking at my back. I can look at my front for a minute. So as far as one of our big objectives is to hone in on actionable next steps. Where do we want to go? What should the efforts, the energy, the resources that are available, what should we be focusing them towards? So you all came up with all these wonderful, actionable ideas, and each of them I've highlighted with the yellow around the dot. I've done my best to take what you wrote on those sticky notes and put it in a understandable frame up on this here. So I might have missed the wording a few. I think we'll start to see a little bit of crossover in those as well. Before I give you the instructions, I would like to have a little bit of help from you. There are 2 sticky notes that I got that were mostly questions, and I want to find out if we could maybe reframe them in terms of how do we make these actionable? What's the action that we're requesting in the context of the questions here? Both of these came from this chart as we were talking about diversity. One says, how do we stay connected with hard-to-reach patients? The other is, how do we get the patient perspective among patients we are not hearing from or those that are not showing up? So what are we trying to do? What is the action? How do we make those actionable rather than, what's the answer to the questions, I suppose? Yeah.
That was our group. I'm thinking, this doesn't exactly answer it because I have a question, but ways to stay connected and thinking sometimes we get contact information, but we also get contact information from a friend or family member or social media information. So things along those lines. And the other one's just really
Just a big
hard
question.
to answer. I don't know how to answer it. Like, how do we reach the people that don't have time or resources or energy to contribute to this? Maybe have, less intense relationships. Different options for connecting.
Different options. You mentioned selection bias is written in quotes here in terms of, how are we making sure that we're actually finding the diverse folks that we're actually gathering the diversity that we're seeking in these groups. So what are those tools or resources that we can use to overcome our own selection bias? And then what are the trainings or what's necessary for us to be able to effectively facilitate and stay engaged with difficult, hard-to-reach patients? So what I would not argue, but say, some of the training options that we've put forward here, training for researchers to engage, training for community asset mapping. So in the context of some of that training, we may find the tools, even training for facilitation was over here as well, might find the tools that help us to do that interpersonal work. Does that make sense?
So what we'll do is we'll keep those questions stuck somewhere, and we'll put that into the report in terms of the way these questions were matching up to specific needs that whatever we develop fits those questions.
Or maybe if people use, PCORI actually has a version of this, like a spectrum of participation. And that's okay. Not everyone can participate as fully as other people can.
So PCORI has that established, so there's no need for us to create a spectrum of participation.
I don't care how other people do it, if they have something like it.
So maybe create examples or create strategies for, I'm not, Brad, were you going to say something? I felt like you were about to raise a hand.
Oh, no, I was pushing my finger.
Is it?
Connected.
That didn't make the mic, but now that I did hear some examples of that. So Daniel talked about how like a focus group pays like such and such dollars, and that probably is 2 or 3 hours, and then so in my project we'll have like a one-off patient advisory group that you can attend once or you can attend multiple times every 6 months, or the other end of that spectrum is you can become part of the research team, which is sort of that 5% FTE for the length of the project.
Okay. So what do you have up there? I was going to say create a spectrum of, yeah.
And I think having those options, or even like having drop-in sessions, like we'll have an open house and you can come to that. So having these low levels of engagement in order to get the community to participate.
Yeah.
And lure them in with food or gift cards or trainings.
I think the community cafe was brought up by your group too as being one way that you can engage people. What are the different ways in which people have engaged communities? What's the intensity of that? What for what purpose? So what are the different techniques people are using, and what is that? What do people glean from that? Cool. From both the researcher and patient perspective.
Thank you. I think collectively we got some clarity on that. So can we develop or identify a spectrum for engagement that allows people to be a part of the work at different levels? If we think about difficult people, that's really interpersonal work that may fall under our team building and some of those other tools and resources that have been identified up here. So we've got a lot of great ideas, a lot of real clear direction. I want to honor you and appreciate that, and that oftentimes this happens and we get a lot of ideas but not really clearly actionable opportunities is what we've identified. But what we want to do now is we want to prioritize those and identify collectively where should we put our money, where should we put our efforts, where should we put our energies. So on your table is a pad of red sticky dots. You will see them there. Everybody at your table is going to get 3 sticky dots and 3. Yeah, 3 sticky dots. And I'm watching you. I usually cut them up in little 3s so you only get 3, but I'm going to trust that you're only going to take 3. This is basically your votes. This is where would you put your money, right? Each of these let's say it represents $100. Where would you put your money in terms of moving this work forward? Where would you pay? Where would you put it down? So you have 3 dots. You could put all of those dots on one, or you could spread them out. You could put 2 on one and 1 on another, or you could put 1 on each one. You're voting for a different opportunity or strategy. Is that clear? You cannot rip your dot in half and put half of it on one and half of it on another one.
You cannot move someone else's dot.
You can't move somebody else's dot. I ask that you put your dot in the vicinity of the specific strategy that you're going for, somewhere near this yellow square, so that they're not starting to bleed over, right? So we want them to be somewhat consolidated. At the end of that, we'll go through and we'll tally them up, and we'll get a feel for collectively what do we feel are the priority actions for us to take moving forward. Questions, comments, concerns on what I'm inviting you to do? Yes, you can. You could put 3 on one if you want. That's fine.
No arm wrestling for dots, no bartering for dots, no buying other people's dots.
So we're going to give you some time. There's a lot up here, so I invite you to come up. And I think that there may also be some strategies or opportunities that are identified on the other charts as well. So we can't all fit in this space. Our goal was to give us some room to all see it. But take a look at some of these other charts, and if you feel like there's something in there somewhere else that's not represented here, you can vote over there as well. Does that make sense? Because we've been identifying really great opportunities for the last day and a half. So we're going to take the next 5 or 10 minutes to give you some time to sit with the charts and all of this great information that has surfaced, and take a look at the opportunities that we've identified and put your money on those that you feel are going to be the highest priority and are going to allow us the most leverage to move this work forward. Give us something to focus on.
Yep, so everybody's going to stand up and do this. I'm going to call the time at 2:15. The one thing, if you finish early, take time, as Maketa said, take time, read through, really figure out what resonates with you and your work and your experience. If you think that there is something we haven't captured, that when we wrap up at 2:15, actually, you know what, maybe we should do that just really quickly. If there's, I feel like we might miss something. Should we do a quick round robin? Are there any hands up, things that we think might be missing, things that you wish were said but weren't? Why don't we do 5 minutes? We'll dedicate some time. Carrie. Oh, wait, hold on, wait for the.
I wanted to clarify, I didn't understand the video tutorials to support, and I might have missed that. I had to step out.
Writing that one. So who wrote that, and can you help me finish? Video tutorials to support what? Who, does anyone recall having that conversation?
That might have been what we brought up. And it was really to, kind of support like mini modules of training. So I guess it could just be to support training.
Okay, gotcha.
For the camera, mini models of
Video tutorial to support training. These are, quote, mini modules. I think we've heard a couple times already really the value of folks wanting to see video rather than read a website and all the information that's there. So great suggestion. Thanks for asking for clarity on that. Anything else that's missed? I know you can't see it up here, so I'm wondering if there's anything that you really feel that might have been brought, that we should bring up that we haven't touched on yet. Yeah.
I just want to clarify. So for some of the ideas up there, I think, oh, sorry. So to clarify, for some of the ideas, I know that we were kind of reflecting on our own work and our own projects. So is this, we're putting the sticker for what we'd like PCORI to move forward, or kind of our own group?
So it's actually what you want Sarah to do. No, just kidding. So our project team, our phase 4 is taking the information we hear here and then putting that to an action plan. And what's been interesting is, as we've talked there, people have said, oh, we have a resource for that, we have a resource for this. So some of these things may be priorities. It doesn't mean that we're gonna develop it. We're gonna do a couple things. One, we're gonna go back through our videos and figure out, okay, who may already have something like this developed, and see if we can bring that together into a community share. We're gonna also reach out to PCORI, because with all of these engagement awards, I mean, even looking at the brief list that Leah put up, they may have tools and materials. And so I'm a big fan of not reinventing wheels. So we're gonna take this to put together our action plan. Is it something we need to develop, hunt down, make available? What do we need to do next? So take what would be most helpful for you, or for the projects that you work on, or something that you think is not something you face, but something you think we should try and tackle. And then that'll be our charge. In terms of next steps for us, we're gonna do a report similar to the way we did the phase 1 report that's on your table. We'll feed that back to the group with a big box that says, these are what we saw as priorities, and here are potential next steps. That will be open comment. You can tell us, what did we miss? What did we misrepresent? What do you think we should change? And then that'll be our marching orders. Mashid.
I was just going to add really quickly, we will also be sure to include images that Maketa has produced. He's going to produce some high-res images for us. So I know lots of people have been trying to take photos of that and ask for some better photos of that as well.
Sorry, thank you. These things do not have the same weight. Some of them are more major, some are more minor. For example, add a human face is such a big thing, but having tutorial is not that they're less important or more important, but bigger or smaller. So one way is to just forget it and just put your dots. The second is to have 2 levels, 1 for the major things, and then also 3 for the more minor things. Minor, I don't mean less important. I mean a smaller scope things.
Thank you. It's a great point. So take your time to look at these and decide, you know what, that is some really great, some term it low-hanging fruit that would really help us move things forward. Others are going to take quite a bit of investment. Maybe you want to divide your money, as it may be, between something that's a higher level, longer term project and something that you feel would be a really great out of the box. So thanks for that.
What I would build on that, when we finish, we're going to come back and do a quick walkthrough of what are the things that are everybody's put a dot around, and we'll have some of this dialogue. Mashid, I appreciate that we'll say, okay, is this something that's huge, and are there tools, resources? Is this a longer term discussion? So we'll come back at the end and get some more context about, is this a quick win? Is this something that's pretty substantial? It's going to take some heavy lifting. Questions, concerns, any other clarifiers? All right.